Oh, hi there. I didn't know you'd be joining us today. Welcome to another Dave Skinks video. Today we're going to go over how to add humidity to the enclosure. First, I'm going to ask you to click that subscribe button because this YouTube show is new and I want it to grow and flourish. If you help me reach my goal of getting to 1,000 followers, it'll help me take more control of this YouTube channel so I can produce better videos for you guys. And as always, you can find me at www.davesskinks.com and on Instagram and Facebook at davesskinks as well. So I'll give you a little tour of a sample of one of my tanks before I get going. All mine are set up pretty similarly. We have one particular substrate for the hot and humid side. And then if you pan over, we have a little bit of a different substrate for the cool and humid side. Most of mine are in a 48 by 24. This is roughly that. So we've got a hide that can go in the dishwashers. Dishwasher safe, as is the good size water bowl. The substrate is deep enough so the skink can burrow at will. A few bricks scattered in, which is good for their nail maintenance, as well as fake vines, which add another hide. And this is our cute little Magma, who's under a year old, and he's going to be sort of our test subject for today. So first, let's go over the different substrates that we're using here. Now, with each setup, the Northerns versus the Irian Jaya Blue Tongue Skinks, I do things a little bit differently, which I'll go over in just a second, but I'm using all the same materials. So on the hot side, it's mostly cypress mulch. I use an organic one that I buy from Lowe's hardware store. It is pesticide and chemical free, but for safekeeping, I put it in the freezer for about 2 weeks, and that kills any bugs or mold or bacteria before it's safe to use because it's not a reptile approved product, but it's a good way to save a little bit of money. So that makes up most of the hot side, but I also add Zoo Med's cocoa husk, and now I'm adding in Zilla's jungle mix. There's a little bit more of the other two things, the cocoa husk and the jungle mix for the Irian Jayas, and that helps sort of balance out the necessary higher humidity levels that the Irian Jayas need. The Northerns need between 40 and 50% humidity, and the Irian Jayas between 60 and 70% humidity. Then if you go over to the cool side, it's just Zoo Med's Repti bark. I really like that because they like to burrow in it. It's comfortable on their skin. It's not prickly or sharp. I'm not worried anything's going to poke them in the eye. But it doesn't retain humidity well. In fact, it molds easier than everything else, even though everything can mold. We want to decrease the chance of this happening at all times. I'm going to add a couple cups of water to the hot side, show you how to mix it in and why I do it. I do this process with every tank about every 3 to 5 days, depending on how dry the tank is, how dry the air is. And what works for me is what works here in Chicago, where in the summer humidity is high, but the rest of the months of the year, humidity is really low. Sometimes my house gets below 20% humidity, so I got to do a few things differently that you might have to in your part of the world or your part of the country. So the first thing we're going to do is prep our area. I like to wear gloves, sometimes the bright colored gloves with the fingers. They look like little worms to the skink. Your skink might get aggressive, just a fair warning. By prepping the area, particularly on the hot side, but really all over the tank, you want to sort of reach down all the way to the bottom of the enclosure, kind of in a scooping motion, and start moving the substrate around. It will help you find buried excrements. Sometimes the skinks poop or pee on top of the surface. Other times they bury it, so this will give you an opportunity to do a little spot cleaning, a little bit more deep in the enclosure. It'll also help you assess just how moist the substrate is right now to determine how much water you want to add, if now is the right time, and so forth. And we're going to also do it on the cool side of the enclosure because occasionally some water spills on the other side or the skink just isn't burrowing in that part of the area. We're going to throw these away. And even though the substrate that I'm using is completely, safe, organic, natural, even though it's mold resistant, it can still mold. So we want to double check. It'll just help keep the tank fresher, longer. There's a lot of good reasons to doing it like this. It also fluffs up the substrate to take in the water that we're going to pour on this side. You can do a little spritz on the surface, but that's not going to really suffice because it evaporates so quickly. And a skink, it'll burrow. It'll take in moisture and water through their scales from the dampness of the substrate. And we want to give it every chance to stay hydrated and give it as much of a natural feel as it would have in the wild. And this is absolutely a natural part of their life that we want to encourage. So let's go get our water. All right, I'm just using any old kitchen cup. I'm gonna pour on a few cups. And it was a little dry today, so we're gonna add a third cup like this. And we're gonna start mixing it all the way around, letting air get to it, allowing humidity to be created by the heat source. In this case, I'm using a mercury vapor bulb. You might have a radiant heat panel, you might have belly heat from tape or a heat mat. All of them work pretty well for a blue tongue. You don't want there to be too much water. You don't want it to get soupy or real damp, because that can create sort of a circumstance where a lot of bacteria is getting grown, and it can actually be really bad for your skink's skin if it's sitting on too much moisture for too long. And you don't want the water you're adding to be too hot, because that can also grow bacteria, which we want to avoid at all costs. And that's kind of what I'll do. That's how I'll leave it. The skink will be really happy. Humidity will be created. It'll be good for 3 to 5 days. You always want to check it out with a hygrometer. It's going to take maybe about 20 to 30 minutes to really get to the level where it's going to be for a few days. Happy to answer any other questions you guys have. Thanks for watching.